Chapter 30, Night Terrors. Jeff had sat with Ryan until the sun came up. Thankfully, Ryan barely stirred. Satisfied there wasn't going to be more screaming anytime soon, Jeff showered, making the most of the hot water before the others got to it. Not that his penthouse had ever run out of hot water, but if there was a time it was going to, with his luck it would be today. He got dressed, unconcerned with how he looked to the crew, not in his usual suit, but in comfortable old jeans and a soft faded t-shirt that simply read, "Make mistakes." He checked on Ryan again, still dead to the world on the couch. The penthouse was eerily silent except for the faint snores of Jack, or maybe Jeremy, from one of the rooms down the hall. Jeff put on a pot of coffee and retired to his office to begin the task of collating the video footage they had and uploading it to his editing program. In what felt like a previous lifetime, Jeff and Jack had taught themselves editing, making rudimentary promos, short films, and mockumentaries about the gangs of Los Santos. Sometimes they were to send a message, and other times just a bit of fun. It was actually how they'd attracted the attention of Gavin, and later recruited Ray and Michael. They documented their own antics on their rise to becoming the most notorious gang in the city, but now they had the news crews to do all that for them. The mere mention of the name Fake AH Crew was enough to sell papers. There was a lot of raw footage to upload, and Gavin and Jeremy had collected all the news footage they could get their hands on as well, plus the randoms archived streams. Jeff was not looking forward to rewatching those. He made sure everything was set to go and let the program do its thing. It was going to take hours. Jeff sighed audibly and let his face fall into his hands, mindlessly rubbing at his hairline with cool fingers. Ryan's screaming had bothered him. He'd seemed to be doing okay earlier. It was hard to tell what was going on in his head. Sometimes Jeff doubted if Ryan even knew himself. This had turned into a shit show. Nobody had gotten that close to them in years. Not like this. They'd come so close to losing people. Ryan, Lindsay. Jeff nearly had a heart attack when she'd left from the helicopter. Michael had nearly been blown up in his tank. When his own chopper went down, he thought he'd never see any of them again. If it hadn't been for Gavin... Jeff smiled at the thought of Gavin, the gangly, awkward kid he'd taken on years ago, who was so good at tripping over his own feet and breaking things and getting stuck in furniture, saving his life. Karma. At least they hadn't lost anyone. The crew was safe. That was what was really important. That was where they'd draw their strength from. And after how they'd left Shadle's body, their reputation was probably still mostly intact. But they still had a message to send. Jeff looked up and frowned at the progress bar, glacially drifting across the screen. The clock said 8 a.m. A quiet cough nearly made him jump out of his skin. Jack was standing in the doorway, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. "How are you doing, Jeff?" He placed one of the mugs down on Jeff's desk and pushed it towards him. Jeff took a sip of the warm, bitter liquid, half disappointed by the lack of liquor in it. "I'm worried about Ryan. I think he might be losing it." Jack frowned. "That's not what I asked." Jeff shrugged. "I'm okay." He turned his blue-gray eyes up to meet Jack's hazel ones, bright but concerned behind his glasses. "Don't think we don't appreciate what you tried to do for us." Jeff raised an eyebrow. "What are you getting at?" "Leading that jet away," Jack went on. "Don't think we don't understand the sacrifice that would have been." Jeff grinned and nodded. "What can I say? I love you guys. You know that." He took another sip of his coffee, eyeing off the whiskey on his desk. "But, I had no plans to die that day." "I can't imagine many do," Jack smiled. "But thank you. Really. I'm glad you're okay. Now promise never to fucking do that again." Jeff said nothing but huffed a laugh and stood up, embracing Jack in a tight hug that lingered long enough to get the sincerity of its meaning across. Jeff glanced back at the progress bar. It had barely moved. Fuck it. This is going to take forever. I'm cooking breakfast. The smell of cooking bacon was a surefire way to get the crew out of bed. As soon as the aroma began to permeate the penthouse, there was a sound of 4 flurried feet dashing to the bathroom, a door slamming, and hand slapping at the door, followed by muffled giggles. "No, Michael!" Jeremy's voice carried down the hallway. "I called it first!" "Too slow, Lil J." Gavin snuck past with his towel, in just a t-shirt and boxers, quietly edging his way behind Jeremy before racing to Jeff's ensuite. "Gavin, no!" Jeremy gave chase, but not quite quick enough, and Gavin made a noise that might have been either a laugh or a bird call as he made it to Jeff's room first and slammed the door behind him. Gotta wait, Lil Jay, sorry. More giggles came from the bedroom as Jeremy groaned. No, you're not, he grumbled, trudging back to the living room and slinging his towel over the back of the couch Ryan wasn't on before flinging himself dramatically onto it. The kitchen was open to the living area of the penthouse, and from a stool at the counter, Jack laughed. Jeff was starting to pile the bacon up on a plate, and he already had toast and eggs ready to go. He was sautéing something else that smelled delicious too. Hey, Jeremy, Jeff called after a few minutes, softly so as not to disturb Ryan. Come get it before it gets cold. Jeremy leapt off the couch, vaulting over the back of it and nearly giving the gents a show as his boxers briefly flipped open. He awkwardly pulled his t-shirt down in an attempt to cover himself, his face flushing crimson but still grinning. I mean, you might as well have a hot breakfast since you're not getting a hot shower, Jeff added with a smirk. Jeremy's grin flipped instantly with a huff. Kidding, dude. You'll be right. But eat up, before Jack gets to it. Hey, Jack feigned offense. I'm just trying to stir everyone this morning, Jeff said with a sly grin. Jack raised an eyebrow, looking past him. Stir your mushrooms. Oh, shit. The pan was starting to smoke. It's okay. It's flavor, he insisted. Sure. Jack rolled his eyes. Jeff scoffed. What do you care, anyway? It's not like you were going to eat them. They are vegetables, after all. Jeremy couldn't help but laugh. On the couch, Ryan stretched and yawned, sitting up and rubbing his face. Hi, Ryan. Jeremy greeted him cheerfully as he filled his plate with bacon and eggs, foregoing the slightly singed mushrooms. Morning, Ryan replied, groggily through a yawn. The aroma of breakfast hit his nostrils, and suddenly he perked up. Ooh, that smells awesome. You mean like burning? Jack replied haughtily. Jeff snorted. Someone's salty. Your mushrooms are salty. It was a long-running tease that never failed to rile Jeff up. There's one pinch of salt in there. I think we have bigger things to worry about than our sodium intake. Hey, save some for me, Ryan called from the couch. Jeff wanted to make a joke about always having salt for Ryan, but he was worried it was inappropriate or might come out wrong. Instead, he put aside a plate for him, making sure he got the good bits of bacon and the less burned mushrooms. Ryan was a little disappointed Jeff hadn't made the obvious joke from his setup. Michael and Gavin both emerged from the showers at the same time and made a beeline for the remaining food. Gavin was leaving a trail of wet footprints on the tiles behind him from where he hadn't fully dried off, t-shirt sticking to his damp skin, his towel still around his waist. Michael, on the other hand, was fully dried and dressed, and simply shook his head at Gavin's mess, even though he knew by now this was what he should expect. Only you could make a shower look like a messy endeavor, Gavin, Michael remarked with a sigh. Ryan chuckled and added, the mind boggles. Gavin Free Mindboggler, Gavin grinned. Has kind of a ring to it. Sounds like the name of your worms, Michael giggled. They started heaping food onto their plates, fighting over the best bits of bacon and both passing on the mushrooms. Speaking of mind-boggling, Gavin said as he took his seat on the kitchen side of the counter next to Jeff. What's going on with you, Ryan? What was up with the screaming? The crew almost collectively winced. Gavin clearly meant well, but it came out bluntly, and all eyes turned to Ryan, who was trying to negotiate his legs into a comfortable position in the wheelchair. Wait, what? Ryan looked puzzled. Jeremy narrowed his eyes at him. You don't remember? Ryan frowned as he wheeled himself to the kitchen counter, a little annoyed that in the wheelchair he was about a head shorter than the others where they sat. I remember you guys were standing around and I was laughing. I can't remember why, though. Must have been pretty funny at the time. Fucking must have been, Jeff muttered under his breath as he piled his own plate with slightly charred mushrooms, bacon, and eggs. Ryan just cocked an eyebrow. Was it really that bad? Jeff looked at him almost pityingly. I've never heard you scream like that. He simply shrugged. I mean, night terrors? They're not unheard of. Jeff shook his head skeptically. Screaming in your sleep is not fucking normal, Ryan. It was fucking freaky, dude, Jeremy interjected with a mouthful of food. Like, legitimately scary to wake up to. It's not like I was having a nightmare or anything, I don't even know why I was screaming. I don't even remember it. Well, you've never fucking done it before, as far as I know, Jeff persisted. Something's definitely going on. Ryan shrugged. I'm fine. Stop brushing us off, Ryan, Jeff pleaded. Just because you have issues with what I went through doesn't mean I have to. Ryan snapped back, a little viciously. There was a pause, as no one knew quite how they should respond to that. Ryan instantly regretted it. The whole mood in the penthouse had shifted. After a while, Jack spoke up. Look, there's no way for us to know what you're going through, but if you don't talk to us, there's nothing we can do. Please, just let us help. Damn it, Jack. It struck a chord. Feeling helpless was something Ryan wasn't especially fond of. He did at least owe them something, even if he couldn't give them an explanation. He sighed. Look, you're acting like it's a bigger deal than it is. You know what? Stuff like this doesn't always have to screw up a person for good. What we do, you all know it. It's not an environment for people who can't quickly acclimate to different situations. I'm not going to let it get to me. He spoke calmly, evenly, but it sounded like he was trying to convince himself as much as them. Did it make me a stronger person? Fuck no. But I'm not going to be the victim y'all need to pity either. It sucks, yeah, but in the end, we're all still here. He paused to let that sink in. I know it sounds glib, but things will eventually get better. So while I might hate myself right now for being an idiot about how I went about things, and even more so for putting you guys in danger, at the time I clearly thought it was the right thing to do by my evidently fucked up moral compass. So just trust me. He offered a weak smile. It'll be fine. The crew sat in awkward silence for a moment until Gavin quietly spoke up. Did you say compass, Ryan? He grinned with a quiet giggle. Ryan was thankful. The lad made it sound like a dumb, throwaway comment, but it was exactly what he needed from him at that moment. He sensed that Gavin knew that. Ryan shook his head and laughed as well. Eventually, the others joined in. Maybe he really would be fine after all. Later that day, Ryan sent Jeremy with explicit instructions to mail the fingerprints and hair samples he'd collected from Shadle's body to Adam Ellis, his contact in the LSPD forensics lab. Even sending it express, it would still take at least a few days for Adam to get around to running the tests and getting results, and that was if there was even anything on Shadle's in the system. Still, it was better than nothing. The news hadn't indicated any new information had been found. Ryan looked over the information Jeremy had pulled up again. He was sure he was missing something. He went back over the victims of his killing spree that day at the Maze Bank. 8 cops fatally shot. None with a twin. None with so much as a sibling in the force. None of the other civilian casualties had been twins either. 8 bothered him. Shadles had said he'd killed 9 officers that day. Or was it 9 people? No, he definitely recalled 9 officers. Maybe he'd been wrong. Or maybe he'd lied. Why would he lie about that? Maybe the records were incomplete. Ryan let out a growl of frustration. He hadn't noticed the pain medication wearing off. Things were starting to ache again. He'd given up fighting it. He just took the meds now. There was absolutely nothing to gain from being in pain, and it didn't seem to affect his head too much, that he noticed anyway. He went into the kitchen to retrieve the pills and a glass of water. Michael and Gavin were on the couch playing a game, some horror game, and Gavin screamed, as he did often. He shouldn't have thought anything of it. The pitch was such that Ryan was instantly transported to the parking garage where it all started. He hadn't been scared at the time, not really, but it all came back to him. The last thing he heard from the crew, the last thing he thought he might ever hear from the crew, their cries over the comms when he pressed the gun against his head, followed by the empty click when he pulled the trigger. He could hear them so clearly now. Gavin had sounded scared, like he wasn't entirely sure what was part of the plan and what wasn't. Michael and Jack's voices had been concerned, but more frustrated, like when he made a mistake playing a co-op game that cost him a win. Jeremy sounded pained, no way to tell if what he was saying was simply part of the plan or genuine, terrified it may be the last thing he ever heard from his friend. Jeff had just screamed. It sounded frantic, simultaneously angry and terrified. At some subconscious level, all of it had stuck with him, and now it was in his head, replaying. It brought back that pit of guilt, heavy in his stomach, like it was consuming him from the inside. His fingers crept to the edge of the burned skin at the back of his neck. Like it or not, Judas. Just when he thought he was doing okay. Yep, that's exactly what I need right now, Ryan thought bitterly as he took the pills. After that, Ryan didn't sleep at all. He would get comfortable, lie awake, and wait for sleep to take him. But much the same way that his body would occasionally violently jerk him awake just as he lingered on the cusp of sleep, his mind had been trying a similar trick. He'd kept it together around the others. They had been considerate enough to give him the space he needed, but strategically keeping him distracted with games and food and banter, for which he was silently grateful. But alone in the dark, it was a different story. As soon as his conscious thoughts melted away, they were replaced by vivid flashbacks to the warehouse. His subconscious apparently remembered every little detail, or did a spectacular job at filling them in for him. It felt too real. At first, he was thankful he never dreamed. He couldn't imagine coping with the nightmares. In the end, though, it didn't matter anyway. He hadn't slept since he passed out on the couch, and he likely wouldn't again until his body gave in to the physical exhaustion. He cursed his insomniac resilience. At least he wasn't screaming. Obsessing over Shadles was not getting him anywhere. Jeremy hadn't been able to turn anything up either. There was nothing to go off, nothing added up. It seemed like everything he had said out in the shed had been a lie. He needed a lead. He hadn't heard anything from Ellis and nothing from the media. It was starting to grate at his nerves. He needed to keep his mind occupied with something else. Luckily, Jeff had been paying close attention, and he had just the thing.